On this episode, we're talking about artificial intelligence and what it means for organizations, especially from the aspect of learning. How does systems theory play into all of this? What are the limits that we're running into in terms of not only technological change, but an organization's capacity to absorb that change and use it strategically? All this and more today on The Perfect Route. Welcome, and we are pleased to have as our guest today Sumit Shekhar. Hello, Sumit.
Hey Bill, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Bill, I come from the background of building softwares now into building softwares on AI and actually building AI infrastructure. I've worked at a significantly large um, financial services company. It's one of the Fortune 10 organizations. As somebody who built the AI infrastructure, AI platforms from ground up, and also the cloud technologies on top. And then prior to this, I was at a telecom organization, T-Mobile, and
Hmm.
was the chief of product for all things SaaS, 5G, edge networks, and stuff like that. Overall, 2 decades plus of experience building products that have impacted um roughly about 10 or 12 billion people globally so far. I'm being on the lowest side of the spectrum. Um,
Hmm.
Fairly large enterprise experiences. I've had my fair share of working at uh, startups as well. On the sideline right now, I'm building my own AI startup as we speak about on this podcast. But again, I'm very happy to be here.
It's fantastic. We're so glad to have you here, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners feel the same way. What pulled you into the mix of AI product and learning?
So I'll tell you what really actually worked for me. It wasn't the technology itself. It was watching people who were at the time struggling to keep up with AI. Right, early in my AI career, I saw teams that were working with models that would retain or retrain overnight. And then the next morning, when the team is half in the office, outside of the office, they did not understand what had changed or why. That gap between what the system learned and what the humans understood, that what hooked me. I feel I realized AI wasn't just about making machines smarter. It was about creating systems that could teach us how to work alongside intelligence that kind of evolves faster than we do. The first time I watched a model improve its accuracy by 15% overnight, while the team that I was working with built it was sleeping. I thought this is a org learning problem masquerading as a tech problem. Over the years, that definition of scale has completely transformed. Like early on, I would think that the scale meant bigger models, more data, faster compute. But that's not at all right now, right? Real scale is, about shortening the feedback, the loop that goes on between humans and systems. It's also about how quickly the organizations can absorb what AI has learned, make a decision, and then feed that decision back into the system. Think about it this way: if your model learns something new every day, but your organization takes a month to understand and act on that insight, right? You are not scaling. You are actually accumulating debt, what we call cognitive debt, right? So from
Hmm.
an organization's winning today aren't the ones who are making the biggest models, right? They are the ones who where I feel that humans and systems are learning in lockstep, where every insight triggers adaptation, not just documentation. From my perspective, that's what drew me to this intersection. the realization that AI, product, and learning aren't separate disciplines, right? They are three faces of the same challenge. We're building systems that makes organization as adaptive as technology they are deploying. That would be my take on this question.
Okay. So it sounds like for you, learning isn't just support work, but learning is also a design and a systems problem.
That's right. The turning point has been brutal, but at the same time, it's been beautiful at the same time, right? So I was architecting a very large AI platform where hundreds of millions of potential value was at stake, and adoption was also crawling. Um, from where I saw it, everyone was blaming the culture. People were resistant to change. They said, "But I don't buy it," right? So I dug in. What I found was resistance. It was an architectural failure. The systems that were built wasn't teachable. There was no version control for any type of decisions. No way to trace why a model would make a recommendation. There was no self-diagnostic tool when something was breaking. Right? We would build a black box and then wondered why people did not trust. Right? That's what when um, it kind of hit me, because if learning isn't designed into architecture from day one, it will never happen at scale. And then from there onwards, you cannot bolt any type of explainability after the fact. You can't retrofit discoverability, right? Learning has to be the first class citizen in the system that you're designing, just like security, just like performance, right? I kind of started treating learning models like microservices. Each one had to be discoverable, measurable, version, and also integrated into the deployment pipeline. Right? When we shipped a new model, we shipped its documentation, its evaluation metrics, all of the kind of edge cases that comes with it, and also the telemetry. Um, all of these at once, because without any one of these, we would be leaving the customer in the dark. As a result, the adoption went from 15% to 78% in roughly about 6 to 7 months time frame. Not because we changed the culture, but because we changed the design. We
Hmm.
made the system itself the teacher, where we would allow the engineers of all sorts, whether it's app dev, infrastructure, SRE, security, to actually query it, understand it, and then trust it without needing a sort of a higher level study or waiting for a training session to happen. That type of experience rewired how I think about enablement, right? Where learning is the infrastructure, and if your system can't teach itself, your people would not learn about it. So I think that has served me really well. It served the organizations wherever I've worked really well.
Amazing. Um, so how is learning organized in your world? Who does it serve, and how's learning linked into product delivery?
Well, I kind of structure learning the same way I structure APIs: clear contracts, clear consumers, and clear outputs. Right. The system serves three constituencies: builders who need to understand how things work, analysts who need to understand why decisions were made, and leaders who need to understand what is possible. Each group gets a different interface into the same underlying knowledge graph. Builders see code lineage, model performance, and integration patterns. On the other side, analysts see decision traces, accuracy metrics, and kind of all the bias reports that are out there. Whereas the leaders see business impact, risk profiles, and strategic options.
Hmm.
The path here is that the product and enablement share the same deployment pipeline. When code are shipped, we ship the knowledge with it, right? Every
Hmm.
release includes telemetry dashboards, runtime examples, and then all types of evaluation templates, that I can arm my user with. It is in my mind is not an optional part. It's a part of the definition of done, right? Why
Hmm.
it matter, if you would kind of ask, right? Because in every enterprise grade AI system, you cannot afford a lag between what a system can do and what people know about it or can do with it, right? That lag creates risks, it creates shadow, um, it creates people who kind of are working around you carefully, designing their own guardrails because they don't understand them, right? So, from the other piece that is non-negotiable is in terms of learning artifacts that are version and searchable. When someone says, "Why does this model recommend X in a certain month, say same time last year?" We can pull up that entire exact version of the knowledge base, the training data lineage, and the business context, right? Were that were active at that moment. So, from my perspective, this is not just about documentation. It's building an org memory, which is also queryable, right? So, and in a world where AI system evolve every week, that type of memory is a difference between learning and chaos. I hope that.
The chaos piece is the scary part sometimes.
Well, there are a lot of headless chickens you would find around yourself right now, because the speed at which web evolved versus where AI is heading right now, I think a lot of people are like building with it, learning as they go. But at the same time,
Hmm.
like memorizing that knowledge within the framework of enterprises. The big shift is gonna be where the model organizations or model companies are building, the ecosystem of knowledge sharing across different verticals, right? For example, financial services vertical, and
Hmm.
something like a Claude or an OpenAI working with them, hand in hand. That would really shape the desire for a certain product to go a longer way, a certain model to go a longer way, because that defines how people are adopting, how people are relying on the information that these models are providing. So yeah, I would think that is a better way to approach learning when AI is growing exponentially every day.
Yeah, we're on a rocket ship, and if anything, I believe that the pace of change, technological change, is just going to increase.
It has. If we don't believe it right now, I think we are everywhere I go. I see that is the part that is being discussed. By every leader, by every organization, because it's the scary rocket that is going at a speed where it's a little difficult for you to adjust, because it's like a what we call a slippery slope. You have to adjust while you are like going through the
Mhm.
wormhole. So yeah, but that that is something that we carved out ourselves. We set the pace, we set the dialogue, and now we are executing on that, right? So it's a right problem to solve in my mind. uh, Probably the next 3 to 4 years is where this level of shift will be happening continually. Someday a model company would come and bring a new way to use AI on a day-to-day basis, and on other
Mhm.
day people would be struggling to find uh, uh, a middle point or a mid page between where the technological shift is happening versus where that is being adopted, for day-to-day use.
Very good. Thanks for that insight. I've got to admit that I'm both excited and scared about where the pace of technological change is going. We- As we've both mentioned, we've never seen anything like this at the pace and just the leaps in capabilities.
Right. I mean, it's scary, but I think it gives leverage to people of all demographics and all age group. Some people are born in AI, so they don't understand what the software development before that. Some of us are born in. I think I would call myself being in that age where I've seen the growth of web, uh, globalization, and with that the invent of Web 2.0 and the invent of AI. I was there when AI was taking shape. It's not a new concept, but the implementation of that in the generative AI space is something that um, is very new. And so the approach to solve some of the bigger problems like healthcare, like legal systems, like education, uh, are some of the things that I'm particular about right now. Um, a lot of these things are now taking shape when you're trying to define the policy behind how AI has been developed, right? We have to be careful in terms of where we are spending time, because there are good actors and bad actors. And we have to
Hmm.
make sure that AI stays responsible. We build the technology in a way in which um, we are thinking about uh, what would happen if it goes in a wrong hand, and how can we safeguard against such malicious acts that are out there. So yeah, but it from my perspective it is exciting.
Yes, these are interesting times to be in. Um, where do you think the biggest skill gaps are, and how do you choose on what to build, what to automate, and what to source?
So in my mind, the gaps today are not technical, they are more cognitive. Most teams can query a model but can't question it. They can deploy AI, can debug it, they can read accuracy metrics, but they can't interpret why those metrics, uh, what are those metrics that are meaning to the business. This is a literacy gap, and it's widening, right? The technology is evolving faster. Organization understanding is kind of catching up with that, and that gap between capability and comprehension is where the risk is living today. So my framework to kind of go about it would be to build a judgment layer, automate the mechanics, and then partner with the frontier models that are out there. uh, Build the judgment layer, meaning focusing on internal resources, on helping people understand the trade-offs, interpreting results, and then making context-aware decisions, right? That's not something that you can outsource anywhere. When I
Mhm.
say um, automating the mechanics, it means anything which is repetitive in terms of the data pipeline, model evaluation, or bias detection, right? They should be continuous and also invisible in nature. Um, those are, in my mind, as table stake, and we cannot make them a manual activity. And the third thing would be in terms of partnering with the frontier, meaning staying close to the teams that are advancing multi-agent systems, retrieval frameworks, and kind of like trust architectures that are coming along with that. I do not try to build bleeding edge research in house, but rather I would collaborate with modern and cloud partners who are investing a good amount of money in research and development. This approach has kept my product judgment like evolving at the edge of where I'm not reinventing the base, and I'm ensuring that my teams are learning from the people who are defining what is next. Not just reading about 6 months later. uh, so f- if we combine all of these three paradigms together, the organizations that are winning uh, are the ones with who are not just looking at the best models, but they are also looking at these models, how they are good at deciding what is the best judgment, when to use which model, and then for what purpose and what oversight. Right? That combination of these three capabilities with that uh, an overarching approach is where I see the that uh, where I need to make yeah, a decision to build, automate, or where to partner on.
That's great. Very well thought out. You know, and let's talk about leadership for a little bit. Are there leadership instincts that matter most with AI native teams?
Um, I think the instinct that I value most is sort of like a narrative discipline where leaders can explain their reasoning out to the world in a way that others can trace and learn from them. Right? This is in my mind, is a lineage, decision lineage for humans that are evolving with the advent of AI. Just like we version control code, we need to also version control our thinking or thought process, right? The
Hmm.
second thing would be in terms of psychological safety. I initially talked about um, responsible AI, treating failure as a data point, not as a verdict. In any type of AI systems, you are going to be wrong. Models are going to drift. Edge cases are going to emerge. And the question then is not going to be whether you will fail. It's going to be whether you will learn from it enough and do it fast enough to kind of be a model for others to adopt of what you are doing. Here is how I would scale these instincts, right? First of all, I would ritualize them in terms of anytime there is a demo, it becomes like a learning artifact. Every post-mortem that I do gets documented and is searchable across the firm. Every decision, especially the ones where uh, it would be on the bleeding edge of controversies, right, has to get its rationale captured. At uh, one of the previous organizations, we instituted a simple practice. After every major product decision, the lead had to write a one page, which we used to call decision memo, explaining the why, the alternate considered, and the trade offs that were accepted. Right? These memo became something like a most read documents in the company. Now, all new hires could trace the thinking that shaped the product, right? Which led the teams to learn from all of the past decisions without, uh, relitigating them. That's how, in my mind, the intelligence compounds, especially in this age, right? You create a system where every person is learning, uh, and then that becomes available to everyone else, where mistakes are getting documented every single day and are not hidden under some type of uh, private folder where it's very hard to kind of surface that when the time comes, where the question is, why did we do it this way? Right? It has to be a traceable and auditable answer. In more AI native teams, the pace of change is so fast that one has to rely on tribal knowledge. There cannot be a need for an institutional memory that is queryable, versioned, and alive. So, those in my mind would be in terms of leadership instinct that perhaps would matter more when we think about AI native teams and colonies and companies.
Okay. Um, so how do you balance control and compliance with curiosity and risk taking?
Um, I would design for any type of safe exploration in the same way that I would design for fault tolerance with guardrails that are out there and no, not the gates, right? I mean, I've just built the guardrails around that. Here is where the difference emerges. Gates are are there to stop you. Guardrails are there to guide you.
Hmm.
Gates require permission, whereas guardrail provides boundaries, right? So in practice, what this means is running a compliance as a continuous evaluation, embedding that into the workflows, right? Bias checks, privacy scans, or say cost monitoring. They're not like end of quarter audits. They are like real signals that developers see as they work, right? When governance is part of a tool chain, people are not exploring confident, instead of like cautious. So they know that the systems will catch if they are not getting close to the edge. So
Hmm.
don't need to ask for permission to experiment. They need clear feedback when they are about to cross a line. One example I would quote is when we implemented an auto approval threshold for a certain type of model change. A small accuracy improvement with it would actually build a low level of risk. Uh, it would deploy automatically, but when it comes to any type of bigger sort of changes or higher risk scenarios, the route would be for a human in the loop review. The system learned over time where patterns were made safe and where yeah, all of these were needed to be provided through an oversight committee. As a result, the innovation velocity doubled, and then the compliance violations dropped by roughly about 35 to 40%. Not because people were caring more about compliance, but because the system made it possible to accidentally violate any type of policy. That mind is a magic of a guardrail in design. When we are in a position to create safety in an ambience, risk taking becomes strategic, not a reckless activity, right? And that's how we keep our curiosity alive in any type of regulated environment.
And I love the comparison between gates and guardrails because, in a theory X command and control type organization, gates are the way things just are built. It's been like that for 150 years. Modern organizations rely more on guardrails in a way that respects the organization's culture, but it takes a lot more awareness and training to make that happen.
And I think slowly and steadily in the world of AI, we're evolving towards that sort of a model where your competition is your best advantage. You cannot build everything by yourself. You need help from people who are good at what they do so that you can build the product, the best that is there available in the market. We are talking about building, you know, uh, products like a commodity that can
Hmm.
serve from one end to the other, right? And it's only possible when you are in a position to uh, work with your partners who come from all different angles with those guardrails that we have created within your organization, so that tomorrow, even though there is a change in your the way you build, the way you apply your models, you're still winning with your customers.
Very important point. Very important. Um, what tells you an organization is getting smarter and not just busier?
um, I look for compression of learning cycles, the time from any type of insight to any type of iteration. If that number is shrinking, I think the learning is happening in a real time environment. If it's growing, then uh, the organization is accumulating any type of process debt. Other types of things that I kind of track is in terms of reduced duplication across teams, increasing cross team reuse of patterns and frameworks, and also in terms of the shift in the question that people are asking. whether it's going to their org leaders or to peer or whatnot. When these questions move from things like what to things like why, I'm watching any type of cognitive maturity happening in real time. One specific example I would provide in this kind of a situation would be is in one of my previous organizations, we were actually tracking how long does it take for a lesson learned in one team to show up as practice in another team.
Hmm.
Initially, the transfer time was roughly about 6 months period, 6 to 7 months. After we were able to build a knowledge infrastructure, we were able to see searchable postmortems, any type of tagged decision logs, or any type of cross-functional showcases. That transfer time dropped to 3 weeks from what it was before, like 6 months. That's a huge advantage, right? And that's
Hmm.
organized intelligence in actions, not like not looking for a very fast delivery, but also looking for a faster learning. The other metric that matters to me would be in terms of MTTR, or mean time to recovery from mistakes. Right, smarter organizations make fewer mistakes, they recover faster, and they also learn faster from them, and then go all the way to adapt faster. Right, a smart organization is always looking ways to shorten its feedback loop and then also lengthen its memory. If these
Hmm.
two curves are moving in opposite direction, then you're looking at real learning compounding, within an organization. And here's the thing that most people miss, right? You cannot measure this without a completion rate or a training now. In my mind, those are vanity metrics. The real measure is adoption or adaptation, like in terms
Hmm.
of how quickly an organization is absorbing any type of new information and then also changing its behavior because of it.
I mean, that's a really good point. And in learning, at least in the corporate learning and development space, we sometimes get so bound up in the mechanics of delivering the learning that we forget about the importance of, organizational change and continuous improvement.
Yeah, I mean, those are some of the things that I think those should be federated across the organization, not shouldn't be part of just one function, because every part is going forward at a different speed. And if we bring all of this under like a center of excellence, or one team providing that oversight, they would find themselves that, hey, one team is moving faster or slower than the other one. What about how can we roll this out? Instead, they should partner, bring like make people partners within different departments, so that they can like train those partners, and then they can go further and train other people within those parts of their own organization or their own groups, so that every group has the ability to learn from their own speed, velocity, and their way to uh, adopt what is being asked from an overall organization perspective at their own pace. That's very important.
Yes, yes, because people and organizations do run at their own pace, regardless of how much we want them to keep pace with the technology or industry changes. Um, with that in mind, if you could start over and think about what a modern learning architecture looks like, what should it look like?
uh, so we are already in a co-learning phase right now. Humans are also like teaching context, systems are teaching pattern, and all these frontier model companies is in dynamic alignment. where systems are retraining on human feedback in hours, not in quarters, right? So that is phenomenal from where it was versus the last 2 years. Think about it. Any type of traditional learning was always top down, where experts would come, design curriculum, students will absorb from that. But in the AI first world, that system is also a learner. Um, it's also watching how I am using it, uh, how am I correct, and where is my struggle. And it's also adapting. This is creating, in my mind, a fundamentally different relationship. It's not instruction; it's a dialogue where
Hmm.
human. I'm saying that this recommendation does not make sense in this context, and the system says, "Here is a pattern that I saw that led to that recommendation." And then from that perspective the human is adjusting, right? It's creating a shift in its own ways in which it thinks, and that system is also then retraining itself. Then at the end of the road, both are getting smarter. The most advanced enterprises today are kind of like already measuring this co-learning dynamic. They are tracking not just how well a human is using AI, but also like in terms of how well AI is adapting to the human feedback. That
Mhm.
bidirectional flow that's the future, right? So from this perspective, in the world, learning is not top down or bottom up. It is kind of like a networked situation where knowledge is flowing between humans and systems across dynamics of teams and through time. And then the role of a learning leader is shifting from like designing content to kind of architecting those flows, right? uh, Practically, here is what it means. Like, for example, there is an AI system that needs to be designed to learn from corrections, not just like execute on instructions that are passed on from humans. So, from that perspective, the human is needing to train, give any type of feedback that the system can learn from, not just like use different tools, right, that are out there. And from an organization perspective, the infrastructure is capturing and distributing these insights from both humans and systems, right? When both of these are working in tandem, where humans and systems are like genuinely co-evolving, that learning curve is not flattening, not as of now. It's like compounding at this point in time.
That's fascinating. And that goes back to our earlier discussion about the pace of change and just the quantum leaps that we are seeing, not only in the technology, but in organizational capabilities. Um, we definitely live in interesting times. And I wanted to thank you, Sumit, for sharing your thoughts on AI systems and learning today. Any closing thoughts?
So yeah, I mean, I would think that here is why I feel that this really matters. I feel that traditional learning systems are becoming a repository of sort or obsolete. You go to them, but in the AI first world, learning needs to be ambient, right? It has to come from us in context and at the moment when we need it. And here's the piece that nobody is talking about. Collaboration with all sorts of models and cloud partners are core to that learning. True enterprises are learning, uh, which is not their learning is not no longer contained within org chart. It's inter-networked. Like I would approach the model providers and cloud partners together to kind of work with them, understand the nuances that are out there, which is It's not something that I would get within the org boundary, right? So I'm learning from my vendors, my customers, and my ecosystem. And the system is capturing this and then also distributing that learning automatically. So that's the way I would think learning and development in the world of AI is happening today. And I'm one of the disciples of that. I would say, for the
Mhm.
lack of a word.
That is so interesting to hear. Well, thank you for joining us today, Sumit Shekhar. And listeners and viewers, if you've got comments, feel free to send them in. I'm always interested in hearing what you've got to say. And we'll see you again as we journey on the perfect route.